Hello, today we're going to be doing 7th grade math. We're going to be focusing on chapter 1, lesson 8. Today we're going to learn about slope. So, what is slope? Let's go ahead and look at our notes here. So, slope is the rate of change between any 2 points. It's also known as m equals rise over run, or m equals y over x. An example point would be 3 and 36. Now remember, the 3 is our x-coordinate, while 36 is our y-coordinate. This tells us that on a graph, we would start at 0, 0 and move 3 to the right, and then up 36. So however our graph is written, it would be somewhere around here. Now, point number 2 is going to be very important because point 1 and point 2 will tell us where our line intersects, and this will give us our slope. Again, slope is the direction that the line moves. So our second point would be 5 and 60. So these are 2 points on the same line. Now we're going to find out what the slope of the line is. So what we would do is put y coordinate 2 minus y coordinate 1. In this case, we would have 60 minus 36, because remember, these are our x's and these are our y's. So we'd have 60 minus 36, and then we'd have 5 minus 3, x2 and x1. Remember, this is point number 1, this is point number 2. Now, this will give us our rise over run, or our slope. I know that 5 minus 3 is 2, so 60 minus 36. Mental math, I know 60 minus 30 will be 30, minus 6 more, because it was 36, should be 24. So I'll have 24 over 2. And now I want my unit rate, so I'm going to divide these both by 2. So I should have 12 over 1. So my slope should be 12 over 1, meaning that when I graph this, I should be going up 12 and over 1 each time to meet the line. Remember, rise over run. All right, continuing on. So let's look at this. Slope is the rate of change between any 2 points on a line. So again, the top part is our rise, or change in vertical change. Like how much did we go up? So I'm going to zoom in on this. So one way we can do this, and I'm going to highlight this here in a second, would be rise over run. So here's our line. I'm going to highlight our line in pink. We're going to pick a different color. Our slope is going to be identified by how high we went up and how much we went over to find the next point. This is our rise. Rise is going up, and our run will be going over. So, in order to find out what this is, we need to count our spaces. We went up 2 spaces, and went over 1. So 2 over 1 would be our slope. Up 2 over 1. Rise and run. And if we look over here at our notes, that is what our slope is 2 over 1 or 2, since 2 over 1 is going to be simplified down to just 2. So our slope is 2. It goes up 2. So again, a way that we can do this is taking 2 points and subtracting them. So we have point 1 and point 2. Point 1 tells us we need to go over 1 and up 1, so it's 1, 1. Point 2 tells us to go 2, 3. So again, in order to solve this, I'm just going to go get a new whiteboard here, if it'll let me. There we go. So our points are 1, 1 and 2, 3. Again, our equation is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. These are x's, these are y's. So when I plug these in, I'm going to have 3 minus 1, because y2, y1, and then x2 minus x1, which will give me 2 over 1. 3 minus 1 is 2, 2 minus 1 is 1, 2 over 1, or just 2. So my slope equals 2. So again, we're going to want to put this formula in our notes. This is going to be our slope formula. Slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, moving on. Let's do a few example questions, and let's go ahead and erase this off of our OneNote so we don't have it on there when you guys are looking. In a linear relationship, the vertical change in y value per unit of horizontal change, an x value is always the same. This ratio is called the slope of the function. The constant rate of change, or unit rate, is the same as the slope of the related linear relationship. The slope tells how steep the line is. The vertical change is sometimes called rise, while the horizontal change is called run. You can say that slope equals rise over run. So again, another way to do this is count how far up you went and how far over you went to the next point. That's another way of doing this. So if you see 1, 1 and 3, 4, instead of doing the little equation, if it's graphed out, we can just go up to where the next dot is. So we go 1, 2, 3, and we'd go over 1, 2. Therefore, our slope is 3 over 2. And again, as we said, the slope of the line is 3 over 2. They've counted how much we rose, 1, 2, 3, and how much we went over, 1, 2, and it's 3 over 2. The slope of our line is 3 over 2. All right, let's do this example here. The table below shows the relationship between the number of seconds, or y, it takes to hear thunder after a lightning strike, and the miles, or x, you are from the lightning. Graph the data and find the slope. Explain what the slope represents. So the data has already been graphed for us. Again, x and y, x tells us to go left or right, y tells us to go up or down. We're going to start at 0, 0. x, 1, y, 5, so we point it here, 2 to 10, 3 to 15, 4 to 20, and 5 to 25. It's all graphed for us. So remember, if it's graphed for us, we can easily do something like this, where we do rise over run. In this case, they decided to do 2 different points, which is fine. It doesn't matter what 2 points you use. So say I went from this point to this point. That's perfectly fine. I went 1, 2, 3 over, and 1, 2, 3 over. It gives me 3 over 3, or just 1. Let's say I didn't use those 2 points. Let's say I used 2 other points, like this one, from here to here. This gives me 1, 2, rise over run, 1, 2. 2 over 2 will still equal 1. My slope is still 1 regardless of what 2 points I choose. Say I choose the first 2 points, 1 and 1. That's not what I wanted. 1 and then over 1. 1 over 1 is still just 1. Therefore, it doesn't matter what 2 points you use to find out the slope, as it will remain the exact same fraction, quote unquote, or ratio. You'll just have to simplify it down. But this slope has a slope of 1. Now, down here they use the example of the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which is completely fine. You can do that too. And it basically says for every 5 seconds between a lightning flash and the sound of thunder, there's 1 mile between you and the lightning strike, which is what we got by going 1 over 1. In this case, they got 5 over 1. So, to clarify, oh, you know what we did wrong? I just realized what we did wrong. Okay, so we did something wrong. We got 1 over 1 doing this, but we didn't realize that each 1 represented a jump of 5. So technically, we didn't have 1 over 1. We had 5 over 1. So this is a good example of a mistake that we can make. So let's go back to this. This to this means 1, 2, or 10, because each 1 counts as 5. I did not look over here. See, this is why it's very important that we look at our table. This could be completely different than this. These are only going up by 1. These are going up by 5 each time. So instead of having 1 over 1, it should have been 5 over 1. So again, jumping from this point to this point, right there, I'd go up 2 and go over 2. This represents 2 because we're going up by 1, but these 2 represent a jump of 10. So this is 10 over 2. And if I divide them both by 2, I'll have 5 over 1. So my slope is actually 5, not 1. My slope is 5, and that is what relates back to what was said down there, that it'll take 5 seconds between a lightning flash and the sound of thunder, and there's 1 mile between you and the lightning strike. So if the lightning strikes 5 miles away, it'll take 5 seconds for us to hear the thunder. So I apologize for that mistake, but I'm glad that I made it and caught it. So let's go ahead and use this example here. No, we just did that one. Let's use a different example. Let's use this point and this point. So I'm going over 1, 2, 3. So my denominator is 3 because there actually is 1 unit. Now this is going 1, 2, 3, but each one's going up by 5 here. So this will be 15 over 3. If I were to divide these both by 3, I would get 5 over 1 still, and my slope is still 5. So very important that you pay close attention to what the numbers on the graph are, because again, they may not always be labeled as 1. This side, the y side, goes up by 10, or by 5, I should say, each time, and over here, x is only going up by 1 each time. So very important that you pay attention to that and don't make the same mistake that I just made. All right, let's do this got it. First thing I'm going to want to do now that I know is check the sides. This is all by 1, and this is all by 1, so we're good. We're good, and we should be able to do this. Graph the data about plant height for a science fair project. Then find the slope of the line. Explain what the slope represents in the work zone. So we have week, and we have plant height. This will be our x, and this will be our y. So week 1, so time in weeks, because it's x, plant height. So after 1 week, we're at about 1.5 centimeters. So we're going to be between 1 and 2, and that was a very bad placement. So I'm going to try that one more time. Actually, you know what? We're going to zoom in a little bit. That'll help us. So we're right there between the two. Not perfect, but there. After 2 weeks, we're going to be at 3 centimeters. So we'd be here. After 3, 4.5. So we'd be between 4 and 5 at 3 weeks. And at 4 weeks, we'd be at 6. Now, if I were to graph this, my line would look like this. Now, I'm going to undo that because I want to see where the dots are. Now, we need to find out what our slope is. So again, I can do rise over run. Now, be aware that our point here is at 1.5. So I'm going to probably want to avoid those, and I want to get one that's right at a number because that's going to be easier to use. So why don't we go from 0.3 to 3 to this one, which is 4, 6. So these are going to give us whole number spaces. 1, 2, 3. I went 3 up, rise over run, and 1, 2 across. So my slope should be 3 over 2. I went up 3 and over 2. 3 over 2. Now let's see if we got that correct. Oh, we don't have an answer. But that's what it should be. If we wanted to double check, we could use these points. We're going to use these points again. So remember, it's y2. So So this is x and this is y. This is 0.2, this is 0.1. So y2, which would be 6, minus y1 would be 3, over x2, which would be 4, minus x1, which would be 2. This will give us 3 over 2, which is still what we got when we counted our slope, 3 over 2. So we should be good. Our slope should be 3 over 2. And we'll do one more example here, and then we will call it for today. Ronaldo opened a savings account. Each week he deposits $300. Draw a graph of the account balance versus time. Find the numerical value of the slope and interpret it in words. The slope of the line is the rate at which the account balance rises, or $300 per week. So he deposits $300 a week. That's what this would be here. Would be our answer. This is an example. This would be our answer. So every week that passes, he deposits $300. So his account's going up by $300 every week. If we pay close attention to this, after 1 week, he had $300. After 2 weeks, $600. After 3 weeks, $900. 4 weeks, $1,200. 5 weeks, $1,000 what? $1,200, $1,500. 6 weeks, $1,800, and so on. If we want to know what our slope is, we just pick 1 point to 1 point. Remember that the rise represents a jump in 300 each space. Each dot is 300. So here it would be 2 over 300, 600. So our slope, we did this backwards. It's rise over run. So remember, this is run over rise. So you want to do rise over run. You want to go up and then over. So this would represent a jump of 600, and then over would be each one would be 2. When I divide these both by 2, I'm going to have 300 over 1, which is what the question told us initially, that for every $300 deposited, it happens over 1 week, or another way to say it is each week he's depositing $300. So my slope here would be 300 because he's depositing $300 each week. Now, the question here is question B. Jessica has a balance of $35 on her cell phone account. She adds $10 each week for the next 4 weeks. In the work zone, graph the account balance versus time. Find the numerical value of the slope and interpret in words. So Jessica has a balance of $35 on her cell phone. So to begin with, our point will start at 0.35 because she has a balance of 35 already. So we go 0 up to 35, which is going to be somewhere here. Now she's going to add $10 to her phone each week for the next 4 weeks. So for the next 4 weeks, we're going to go up by 10. So instead of 35 after first week, she'll be at 45, which will be somewhere here. After 2 weeks, she'll be at 55, which is kind of close to there. 3 weeks, she'll be at 65, and at 4 weeks, she'll be at 75. So my line should look something like this. Now this one's not going to be as easy to just do rise over run because you see they're not in any perfect spots on a graph. They don't hit where a line hits. So what you're going to want to do is the following. Find the numerical value of the slope and interpret it in words. At 0 weeks, she had $35 in her account. At 1 week, she had $45. 2 weeks, $55. 3 weeks, $65. 4 weeks, $75. We're going to take any of these 2 points. So I would take week 3 and week 4. And we're going to use our formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And remember, I may have done this a little backwards with the chart, but she had a balance of 35, so that would be our x, and our change is our y. So I should have probably done it the other way around, but it's fine. And this is not letting me write y here. There we go. So y2, oh, sorry, other way around. This would be y, this would be x. I had it right. So y2 would be 75 minus 65 over x2 would be 4 minus 3. This would be 10, and this would be 1. So even though she started at having $35 in her account, the constant rate of change is $10 each week. So it's 10 over 1. My slope is 10, and this represents an increase of $10 in her account each week. Now, with these kinds of questions, they're going to want you to graph it. So you're going to have to graph it and then draw a line through it. So that's part of your homework, is graphing it correctly. And then the next part is interpreting it or writing a statement saying that the slope is 10 over 1, which is an indication that she is depositing $10 each week into her account. And that's it. That is the entire lesson for slope. I've been Mr. P. If you have any questions, you guys know how to reach me. I will see you guys on the next one.